Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the media, dear guests, welcome to the official press conference held by the President of Montenegro, Mr. Jakov Milatović, President of the European Council, Mr. Antonio Costa, and President of the European Commission, Madame Ursula von der Leyen. To begin, I would like to invite the President of Montenegro, Mr. Jakov Milatović, to deliver his opening remarks.
So thank you very much. Dear President of the European Council, dear Antonio, dear President of the European Commission, dear Ursula, dear media representatives from across Europe, ladies and gentlemen, today is a big day for Montenegro. It is a great honor for us to have hosted the EU Western Balkan Summit, an event that will be remembered as the most significant diplomatic gathering in the modern history of our country. For the first time, the leaders of the EU member states, together with the heads of the European institutions, as well as our partners from the Western Balkans, have gathered in Montenegro. The fact that this summit is taking place in the year in which we mark 2 decades since we have restored our independence gives it a special historical significance. 20 years ago, the citizens of Montenegro peacefully chose to restore its independence. Today, Montenegro is bringing Europe together here in Montenegro. And this is a powerful message, a powerful affirmation of the path we have chosen, the maturity that we have demonstrated, and the responsibility we have assumed. The summit confirms that enlargement policy is again a strategic priority for the European Union. It sends a strong message that the European perspective of the Western Balkans is alive, credible, and attainable. For Montenegro, this is a moment of great recognition and even greater responsibility. Dear colleagues, throughout the accession process, we have implemented important reforms, aligned our legislation with the EU acquis, and strengthened our institutions that must serve as the foundation for the rule of law, democratic resilience, and public trust. Our European path has gone through different stages. There have been periods of progress and, unfortunately, periods of stagnation. The presidential and parliamentary elections of 2023 brought a new momentum, new energy, and a renewed credibility to Montenegro's European path. Since then, the goal of Montenegro, becoming the 28th member state of the EU by 2028, has become a national project, a project of a national unity, with a clear deadline, a clear path, and a clear accountability. Today, I can say with the full confidence that this goal is realistic and achievable. It is strongly supported by all our European partners. And Montenegro has already demonstrated in many areas that it acts already as a member state. Our full alignment with the EU's common foreign and security policy confirms that we are already a reliable partner and a responsible ally at a time of major geopolitical challenges. Let me be precise about 3 important dimensions of Montenegro's successful EU accession story. Number one, that would be a national triumph for Montenegro and for a new leadership and the new political culture of Montenegro. For Montenegro, membership in the EU represents the success of the state, of our public administration, of our institutions, and above all, of our citizens. It is a confirmation of years of reforms and our society's ability to change, to mature, and to progress. The second dimension is the regional one, the one which is very much related to the Western Balkans. Because Montenegro wants to serve as an example, as a role model, as an encouragement to the other candidate countries in the Western Balkans. Our experience demonstrates that reforms are demanding but achievable, that the European path is meaningful, and that it leads to the ultimate goal, which is a fully fledged membership in the European Union. And the third dimension is the European, because Montenegro's accession to the EU would send a message about the credibility and attractiveness of the European project. It will demonstrate that Europe honors its commitment, recognizes results made, and remains a community of democracy, peace, and a shared prosperous future. And that is why this summit carries significance that goes beyond the borders of Montenegro. It is important for our region as well as for the European Union. Montenegro's integration would send a powerful signal to all candidate countries that the European dream is alive, that is real, that hard work pays off, and that enlargement policy remains one of the most successful policies of the European Union. So today, from Montenegro, we are sending a very clear message. Montenegro is ready for the final stage. We are ready for the final stage of our European journey, which we have started by launching the EU negotiations back in 2012. We are ready to fulfill our remaining obligations, and we are ready to seize this momentum, which was also brought to us by our European partners. Montenegro is a country with a clear strategic orientation, committed to democracy, to the rule of law, to peace, to media, and to human dignity. European integration is woven into our nation's history throughout our struggle for freedom, European system of values, and our vision of a free, democratic, and united Europe. And let me conclude. Over the past 3 years, ever since I have been elected by the people of Montenegro to be the president of this country, I have consistently conveyed to European leaders my conviction that Montenegro can become a member state of the European Union, the 28th member state by 2028. Today, following this summit, I speak with even greater confidence. Montenegro has the opportunity to achieve the great objective of our generation, to transform the independence we have restored 20 years ago into a well-governed, just, and economically strong state. At the end, I would like to thank President Costa and President von der Leyen, all the leaders from the EU member states, and our friends from the Western Balkans for their presence, support, and trust. Today, from Montenegro, we have sent a message of European unity, credibility, and a shared future. And this is the task of a generation, and it is the task we will accomplish together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now like to invite the President of the European Council, Mr. Antonio Costa, to address us.
Mr. President, dear Jakov, dear Ursula, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President, for your welcome and for this very successful summit between the European Union and the Western Balkans here in Tivat, where we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Montenegro restored independence. What we have achieved in just 20 years is truly impressive. The summit concludes my second annual Western Balkans tour as I travel to all our partners in the region this week. During the tour, I exchanged with leaders, representatives of civil society, and students of College of Europe in Tirana. We took stock of all the progress achieved since our last summit 6 months ago. I want to mention some important milestones which demonstrate the momentum for enlargement. Last month, the European Union began the drafting Montenegro's accession treaty. For the first time since 2013, we are really counting down to the next enlargement, to Montenegro become the 28th member state by 2028. Last week, we held an intergovernmental conference with Albania, which opened up the next phase in the accession process. In addition, the Commission has proposed to close 3 negotiation chapters with Albania. And the Serbian government presented a concrete calendar to approve the missing elements of the electoral law reform and to complete the judiciary reform in line with the ODIHR and the Venice Commission recommendations in the coming weeks. And, very important, this week we are unlocking the process for opening the first enlargement cluster for Ukraine and Moldova. This is proof that reforms and engagement with all actors of society pay off, and that the European Union is committed to enlargement. These were my messages during my visits this week. I encourage all partners to seize the opportunity, use the current momentum, and take all the necessary steps to accelerate their progress on the European Union path. Full alignment of our Western Balkans partners with the European Union's common foreign and security policy remains an essential manifestation of our unity. The European Union is a community of values and a project of peace, prosperity and security. It is a project on which we are all continuously working. The Western Balkans are an integral part of the European Union's future. Their accession remains our priority and a crucial geopolitical investment. The process is and will remain grounded on merit and credible reforms. At the same time, our discussion today showed our shared ambition to deliver as soon as possible on enlargement. That's why we are considering new ideas to streamline and accelerate the process, to increase trust in the European Union and increase the motivation of the Western Balkan partners. Fostering good neighbourly relations and regional cooperation is also an essential priority to ensure the security and economic prosperity of the region. This will require difficult decisions and sustained efforts, but this is how Europe has been building a shared future in the last decades. The Western Balkans can count on our continued support. The European Union is and will remain the most reliable partner of the region, because the future of the Western Balkans lies with the future of the European Union. Once again, thank you very much, dear Jakov, for hosting us today in this beautiful Tivat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. To conclude the opening statements, I invite the President of the European Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, to deliver her remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much, President Milatović, dear Jakov, for hosting us here, me and my friend Antonio Costa. It's wonderful to be back in Montenegro. And indeed, we have met now for the second time with our Western Balkan partners within 6 months. And that says already something very important. It shows that Europe and the Western Balkans are getting closer. Today we discussed how to make this connection stronger, how to make it more visible, more concrete. We have been all affirming the Western Balkan belongs into the European Union. That's very clear. And this is not only a promise for the future, it is a choice that we make, a strategic choice. We make this choice through investment, through closer cooperation, and, of course, the confidence to move forward together. We have basically discussed two topics. The one was the growth plan, the other one enlargement. The growth plan matters because it is already a gradual integration in the single market in different sectors. The principle is very simple. We open sectors of the single market for Western Balkan companies. Therefore, the Western Balkan countries have to do reforms to create a level playing field, but with the reforms comes our investment. And these are very tangible and practical things. We have so far delivered investments of 675 million euros. The next tranche that is foreseen for disbursement is 540 million euros. It's, for example, high-speed internet for 75,000 households, or it's the electrification for railway, or it's preschool places, just to name a few. But it has, of course, also very important impact for the companies, the business in the Western Balkan. For example, SEPA has been introduced in 4 Western Balkan countries, the single euro payment area. What does it do? If you have transactions, normally it lasts days till the financial transaction is done and it costs money. With SEPA, it's within seconds and it costs nothing. The whole region, if the whole region is integrated in SEPA, this could reach savings around 1 billion euros for the companies. We also want to bring, of course, our people closer, and this is why we want to extend Discover EU for young people from the Western Balkan. And what is very good, we will now start to negotiate and implement in the Western Balkan roaming, roam like at home. I remember when it was introduced in the European Union, it made a huge difference for all of us, and we want the same here with the Western Balkans. The second topic that we discussed was, of course, enlargement. Enlargement is a geostrategic imperative for us, and the long-term investment in our peace, our stability, and our security. It will remain merits-based, but it must become more dynamic. You could hear it also from my friends here on the podium, because merits-based does not mean slow. Merits-based means fair and predictable. In other words, it means when reforms are delivered, then progress on the path of accession to the European Union must follow. And this is what we want to do, to reward reforms with real integration, So, for example, access to our programs, closer links to the single market, and European Union funding that rewards the reforms. To conclude, if I had to sum up this summit in 2 words, they would be determination and confidence. Determination to make the European future of the Western Balkans concrete as quickly as possible. Confidence that our union will grow in the years ahead. And yes, Montenegro becoming the 28th member state by 2028 is within reach. That's very clear. The discussions showed that today, so we can only encourage you to keep up the good spirit and the pace that you've shown, the ambition and the determination. We hope that Albania will follow quickly and that the whole region will keep moving closer to our union. Because what this summit has shown is that we already form a community of shared destiny. Our security is connected, our economies are connected, and of course our future is connected. The enlargement process is how we turn this reality into membership and how we bring the Western Balkans closer to where they belong, that is at the heart of the European Union. Thank you very much for hosting us here.
Thank you, Madam President. We will now open the floor for questions. In the interest of time, we will take 4 questions in total, 1 from Montenegrin media, 2 from international media outlets, and 1 from the Western Balkans media. First question comes from the Montenegrin media. Yes, please.
Good afternoon to everyone. Krsto Gazivoda from the Public Media Service of Montenegro, and I of asking you the question on behalf of all present Montenegrin media. So we have a question for all of you. So I'm glad you mentioned the pace we're going at. That the pace is basically the most important thing, and we set ourselves some high expectations that we should close 10 chapters by the half of the year. We now have we wanted to close more, but as I understood, we will close 4 by the summer break. Have the dynamics slowed down? And what do you expect by the end of the year? And what happens if some of the chapters remain to be closed in the next year? And also, do you see some foreign factors affecting our path to the EU? Thank you.
No, we have very good news on that one. I must say it's impressive to see the speed at which you are delivering. And here everybody is pulling in the same direction. The President, the Prime Minister, the Parliament, that's very important. You all are focused on the common goal. And we can sense that because the speed of delivery of complicated reforms is impressive. So we can only encourage you to keep up the good work. And indeed, the goal is towards, let's say, the end of the year or the beginning of next year to have the whole clusters and chapters closed, to then do the next steps. This is the drafting of an accession treaty and the following steps then that have to be done. It's getting very concrete. So you're moving towards the finish line, and the finish line is not a finish. It's the beginning of a membership in the European Union. So keep up the good work. We are by your side every step of the road.
Do you want to say something? Let me just, quickly build on what Madam von der Leyen, already mentioned. I think that, this is really a great day for Montenegro. And hosting all the leaders from the EU, as well as the friends from the Western Balkans, the leaders of the EU institutions, shows the trust and shows that the door is fully open on behalf of the EU for our EU accession. I think that we have also shown maturity and political unity when it comes to getting to achieve this goal. The presence both of myself and the Prime Minister speaks to that aim, and I'm absolutely more confident after this summit that the EU accession of Montenegro by 2028 is absolutely achievable. Obviously, the work is not done yet. We need to keep up the good work, to speed up the things, to come to an end of certain reforms that we have started. You know that I always mention the Constitutional Court, the electoral reform, the rule of law, and this is ultimately what this process is about, the rule of law and the institutions. I think that Montenegro is absolutely making a lot of progress, and we are there to keep up with the good work.
Thank you. Now we open the floor for question coming from the international media. Do we have? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Jorge Valero with Bloomberg. I have two questions. First, about a candidate country that is not here, Ukraine. President Zelensky offered in an open letter talks with Russian President Putin. So my question is, how quickly are you aiming to bring Putin to the negotiating table? And secondly, a question on China, which is one of the big topics being discussed in Brussels ahead of the summit. There's been a lot of talk and discussion about new tools. Commissioner Šefčovič just mentioned that there is time for a diversification tool, but the problem in the past has been the political will. So my question is, what makes you think that this time is really different and the countries, especially Germany, are really united behind this tougher stance? Thank you.
Should I? Will you?
Well, regarding the first question, since the 24th of February 2022, all of us are fighting for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, and all the means are important to achieve a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Increase our pressure on Russia to support Ukraine, and of course support also Ukraine in their peace negotiations efforts. Is our position always the same: support Ukraine, and looking at the same time looking forward in the future of Ukraine in the European Union. And the great news from this week is now we are unblocking this process, and as Prime Minister Magyar said, we can presume that in 3 weeks it's possible to deblock this accession process. Is very good news.
Yes, I can only underline that. It shows no one wants more peace than the people of Ukraine and the President of Ukraine. And he has our full support what the content of the letter is concerned. On China, you know our general approach. It is very clear: de-risk, not decouple. What we want is dialogue, but dialogue has to deliver. We like competition, but competition has to be fair. And we want access to the Chinese market that shows reciprocity in what the Chinese are offering to our companies. And therefore, it is a whole concept that we're working on towards China. We have a toolkit of different instruments, but for us it's important to really have this order that I just mentioned: de-risk, not decouple, have dialogue that delivers, embrace competition but protect against unfair competition, and make sure that the access to the respective markets is reciprocal.
Thank you. The next question is reserved for the regional media representatives. We have one over there, please.
Dusan Mlađenović, N1 Serbia. A question for the EU officials. Your comment on the Serbia EU path, especially regarding democracy, rule of law, freedom of media, which is backsliding in last 2 years especially. And there is a fact that Serbia has not opened a single cluster since December 2021. And I'm asking this question because people in Serbia today through a majority of pro-government media and tabloids, could only see hugs and kisses between you and President Vučić. Thank you.
So, it's very clear the accession process is a merits-based process. As we said, it's reforms that have to be delivered. And indeed, the rule of law is a central cornerstone of the accession process. The same goes for media freedom. You know exactly what reforms have to be delivered. It's just judicial reforms. It is the REM Council. It's the electoral law. It's CFSP alignment. I will not go into detail. But here is very clear for Serbia, if Serbia delivers on these reforms, then the third cluster can be opened. Merits-based process, as we just explained. It is a responsibility on two sides. If Serbia delivers, we will also deliver. And it's very clear that the European Union wants Serbia also being part of the European Union, so we support the Serbian society on its path towards the European Union, but it has to fulfill the criteria.
Okay, I just can add that, as I said, the Serbian authorities was very clear to commit it with a very specific calendar. In the coming weeks, they will conclude the judiciary reform, fully complying with all the recommendations from the Venice Commission. The next plenary session of the Venice Commission is the 12th of June, and then immediately after, the Serbian authorities is committed to change the judiciary law in order to comply with all these recommendations. They have already approved 4 laws regarding the recommendations of ODIHR, and they need to approve in the coming weeks more 2 laws to fulfill all the recommendations of ODIHR regarding electoral law. This is the concrete commitment from the Serbian authorities, as in based of these commitments that the Commission will provide their assessment, and the Council will decide if it's time or not to open the third cluster.
Thank you. To conclude, we go once again to international questions. Do we have? Yes.
Thanks. Jack Power from the Irish Times. A question for all three. We also have the Franco-German paper that was proposed about gradual phased entry into the EU, also the idea of associate membership. I just was wondering, in each of your views, does this apply at all to Montenegro, or is Montenegro, I suppose, a separate case because of how far along it is? Thank you.
Well,
Jakov,
You start.
we support your position.
Maybe I break the ice. So our understanding is that that paper is a constructive way to engage with the candidate countries, especially with the Western Balkans. It is very much connected to the gradual integration. However, we do believe that the case of Montenegro is a bit unique, given the fact that Montenegro is the only candidate country that has already kicked off the working group with regards to the drafting of our own accession treaty. So that's the way we understand the things, including the paper. However, obviously, as part of a bigger story, it is a constructive way and a creative way to bring all the candidate countries closer to the final goal.
Look, I think the most important is everybody agree that we need to accelerate all the enlargement process. As President von der Leyen said, merit basis doesn't mean a slow process. That means that from the side of the European Union institutions and from the side of the candidate states, everybody needs to work faster and harder. And this is our commitment. On the other side, we can try to simplify the bureaucratic procedures in all of this process. And now it's very positive. There's they are floating several proposals in order to eliminate bureaucracy, perhaps to create some kind of a new omnibus on enlargement in order to move rapidly to conclude this merit-based process. And of course, for the front runners, perhaps it's not like Montenegro is not so important than for other countries.
Yeah, as Antonio said, the merits-based process is supported by all member states. That's the foundation. And now we'll look into the proposals if they are, the goal of these proposals is to improve the process. And this is more than welcome. And we will discuss it, but the baseline is the merits-based process is the foundation, and we want to move forward fast and efficiently.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the debate.
Let me just say one more thing. Given the fact that this has been the most challenging organizational task that we had in the history of our country in terms of organizing these kind of events, you can just imagine that the last one that we have organized consisted only of about 8 to 9 leaders from the region. So you can imagine for a small country like Montenegro how difficult from the logistical point of view was this task. I do want first of all to once again thank to our European partners for trust that you have showed that we can actually do it. I think that we have showed to everybody that we were able to do it. I think that the weather also helped very much in terms of the optimism and the energy. Secondly, I do want to thank to all the media from across Europe for being with us here at such a historic day for Montenegro and Europe. And finally, I do want to thank to all the institutions of Montenegro, including the police department, the airports of Montenegro, the local municipality of the host city of Tivat, and all the others for making an amazing milestone and doing a great job in terms of helping us all to organize this magnificent event. So thank you very much on behalf of the citizens of Montenegro.
Thank you too.
This concludes today's press conference. Thank you for your attention, and we wish you a pleasant afternoon.
Oh.